Hey there and welcome. Today we have a 68 RFE on the bench out of a 2012 Dodge 2500 HD with a 6.7 Cummins diesel. This is the original transmission that came out of that vehicle. He's got another one in there that was rebuilt by another shop, which I might see sometime in Q1 of next year. But the story with this thing is that it had started to overheat real bad. Overdrive, fifth gear, sixth gear, lost gear ratio error codes, P0735 and 36. So it's a telltale sign that overdrive clutch is washed, and unfortunately that's par for the course with these transmissions. So anyway, we'll get inside of it, see what's up with it, tear it down, inspect it. When we go back with this thing, we're going to be putting a Sonics Smart Tech overdrive housing kit in here, so a little bit more robust than the factory piece. Anyway, let's get started. So 10 millimeter on your shifter pinch bolt. So right now the shifter's in park. Take it out of park. Should be able to spin the shaft easily counterclockwise. It's actually the direction of engine rotation if you were, looking at it from the other direction. And then put it back into park if you want clockwise. And then this thing, in my my other teardown video, these transmissions, I have me indexing this. It's really not necessary. I wasn't as familiar with these units as I am now, but basically there is a blind spline on this selector shaft, and so your lever just has to be lined up with the spline, and it's right there. Alright, so 8 millimeter on your two speed sensors, input output. This one got broken somehow, probably from extraction from the vehicle. That bolt was loose. So I replaced the speed sensors, the line pressure sensor, the solenoid pack, range position switch assembly. None of that stuff gets reused. I never reuse electronics or electrical components with any transmission that I build. Alright, so he's got a contraption on here. I'm not super familiar with Dodge vehicles, so I don't know what this is. It looks like some kind of vacuum switch or something like that. It's got an electrical connector on it. So we'll keep that aside, put it back on once this unit's all done. Alright, here's our line pressure sensor. Also 8 millimeter. So all these bolts get 105 inch-pounds. Same with the pan bolts. So front and rear end play are measured separately. Front end play, you need between 20 and 29 thousandths of an inch. There is a little bit of what we call shaft, a snap ring play. So you might feel two clunks, you might feel one, it just depends. But when you go back with it, you'll feel two distinct clunks when you yank up on the shaft with the case vertical. In the rear, you need to be between 10 and 20 thousandths, and the agent that controls or sets your end play is a selective thrust washer that's at the bottom of the fourth clutch hub and sun gear assembly. And that sun gear is for the reverse carrier. So you're going to have a reaction carrier, a reverse carrier, and an input carrier in the back of the case. So three planetaries, or three gear sets, I should say. Okay, so your parking gear. Okay, this is the inboard side here. This is the outboard side. Check your splines. Check the structure. The output speed sensor reads these teeth here. That's how it determines vehicle speed, and it uses that information in combination with the input speed sensor to, among other things, determine gear ratio. And if it sees something out of whack based on all the other data streams that it's receiving, it'll throw a gear ratio error code. So for example, if you're slipping in overdrive, it'll see something seriously wrong when you're in fifth and sixth gear with the actual gear ratio versus the stored gear ratio that it should be seeing, and it will throw a code for that. And those codes are PO735 and PO736 for overdrive, PO734 for fourth clutch, and PO733 for, I want to say, either second clutch or PO731 is going to be your underdrive clutch, and I say the other one's reverse. Alright, if I'm wrong about any of that stuff, I'll just flash a chart on the screen so that you know versus me just confusing you. So 8mm on these pan bolts, again 105 inch-pounds. Chrysler from the factory does not use a gasket here. There's RTV that you can buy from Chrysler. One of my shop customers tells me that O'Reilly sells a certain brand of RTV that is identical to the Chrysler stuff and works just as well, and is roughly half the cost for an equivalent size tube. I don't know what that brand is. If I can find out before this video goes to production, I'll annotate it with the specific brand. All right. This transmission has been rebuilt before. I probably should have showed you with the case still upright, but there is a date of 2020, written in marker by somebody or some shop. Let's see, okay. So it looks like they put a gasket on there. That's perfectly fine. I do the same thing. There are reusable bonded steel rubber gaskets, and what this shop did is they put a skim coat of RTV, which I can't get this off now, a skim coat of RTV on both sides of the gasket, and that will ensure that it does not leak. And again, I do the exact same thing. So here's a little magnet. Fluid has some burnt clutch material in there. So again, no overdrive was the primary shift concern. Drive concern, I should say. Alright, so you have towards 25, okay. My mistake. Alright, now, the owner did tell me that he dropped the valve body, so the filter bolt that I just pulled out was loose. He did drop the valve body because he thought perhaps the valve body was cross-leaking between it and the channel plate, and so he advised that he put a gasket, and so that was, in an attempt to try and remediate the condition, but unfortunately it did not work. So 8mm on your valve body to case bolts, they're all along the perimeter here. 105 inch-pounds. These feel over torque to me. These feel more like about perhaps 130 to 150. All right, we're loose. So all you need to do is pry outward just to get the solenoid pack to kind of allow a little seal to allow it to pass through, and then valve body comes out. So you have a gray connector here. These valve bodies, check bolt configurations changed 3 times. So first generation is 2006 and a half, I believe, when these things went into production, to 2011. And then 2011 through 2018 was second generation. Third generation is 2019 and onward. So you have a great many bolts holding everything together: valve body, spacer plate, channel plate, and so they would have to come out. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I believe these are all your solenoid pack bolts. I always replace the solenoid packs just because they do have issues, improper line pressure rise and other concerns. The valve body has its own problems. solenoid switch valve being chief among them. So we'll vacuum test this valve body as well as the valve trains in the pump and see if we have any concerns about hydraulic sealing integrity, and if we need to remediate, bore out the either tubing or just replace wholesale. Okay, I'm just going to take them all out. Alright, there we go. So this last one was the bolt that had to come out for me to get this solenoid pack off. So this will be replaced with a brand new one from Chrysler. And I'm just going to finish taking out the rest of them so we can split the halves. Alright, I had to change battery out, and off camera I was messing around with the valve body. So I was able to get this screw out. So hopefully I can get that other one out. And we can actually look at the valve body just real quick. I mean, I'm not going to take all the valves out or anything like that, but at least you get to see, you know, what everything looks like under here. There we go. All right. So here's your channel plate, and then your spacer plate, and then here are the check balls. I'll just zoom in on the valve body casting. Okay, so a ball here. Notice there's no balls in either of these two bathtubs. So you have a ball here, a ball here, a ball there, a ball there. And see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is going to be your number 6, number 7. In this version of the valve body, 2011, 2018, those balls are absent. So they're Torlon. I'm going to check them, just make sure they're not wore out or something. Otherwise, you can reuse them, or if you can install like a zip kit or, you know, a Transgo valve body kit, something like that. I believe the check balls will come new in those kits. All right. So this is a constant source of problems. This accumulator plate. A lot of times, you'll have one of these come in, and this plate will be literally broken off, and you'll have either no movement or very little, or the transmission be completely non-functional as a result. And so anytime you go back with one of these valve bodies, if you're going to reuse the pre-existing valve body, you want to make sure that you install a heavy-duty accumulator cover plate in place of the factory plate. Otherwise, you'll be taking a chance. A piece of something. All right. There's a spacer plate. No gasket. It's popular to install a gasket here, so it's recommended. And then the plate itself is just an aluminum casting. So let me zoom back out. So these castings will be cleaned up and then vacuum tested. And then I mentioned this in the other video too. It's a good idea to cut this filter open if you're going to do a service. This filter is relatively new looking, but you know, if you got a lot of miles on yours, it's a good idea to cut it open just to see if there's any metal or other concerning matter in there. You know, anything that shouldn't be in there. All right, let's go ahead and get this thing off. So, cooler filter. Okay, these come in any kind of like dealership deluxe kit or comprehensive master rebuild kit or anything like that. So for these, if it's a factory build or stock build, I prefer to use dealer deluxe kits. Basically, it's exactly what the dealer uses. All board Warner frictions, you know, all the correct original soft parts, etc. And then I like the Durabond red box bushing kits for these as well. Gotta figure out how big that thing is, socket wise. So it's 18 millimeter. All right. All manner of sludge or whatnot on there. So this will have to be completely cleaned out. This transmission was sitting for a while. For how long I don't know, but it's going to have a lot of rust on it, as you've already seen, and then you're probably going to see maybe a little bit of rust inside on ferrous metal parts. All right, so we'll go to the front of the case. And you'll see there's a perimeter snap ring here for your cover plate for the pump. So this just comes off. It's not too fussy. And then we'll come back here. And then we got to get in through here to pop that cover off. Okay, dealer deluxe kit will come with a new cover. Most of the comprehensive overhaul kits for these will come with new pump covers. So if you got to break or damage or dent yours just to get it off, no big deal. Again, no big deal. Go ahead and get this pump out. So these pumps are very expensive. From Chrysler, I want to say they're like $1,000, give or take. $20 foot-pounds. This one was loose. And they're all the same. So if you're doing anything high performance, it's recommended you replace the pump regardless. And then for the valve body, at minimum, you want to run a billet channel plate, because the factory channel plate really can't hold the higher running pressures that are often required for anything that's tuned and making a ton of horsepower. All right. So you can see surface rust here on the stator. This can come off with like a wire wheel as long as the splines are in good shape. Believe it or not, it's okay to reuse. So you're going to have Torx 30 here for your stator to stator support bolts. Let's get used so you can see it. And then you're going to have your sealing rings. You want to eyeball this bushing here. Most of the time it's wore out heavily and they're a pain to get out. I mean, the only way to do it that I'm aware of is to just take a very sharp chisel and very carefully cut this bushing so that it is just simply severed, and you're probably going to have to do it in a few different places. Now, I'm looking at this shaft here. It's got all kind of rust down there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to salvage this or not. So One of the big problems with overdrive, we're having the overdrive clutch fail on you is the dribbler valves that are located on the other side of this stator. So, when we get this off, we'll show you, but you could test that with the air by putting air into your feed port here on the stator. If air is coming out of the dribbler valve on the opposite side, that's a concern. Otherwise, you want to pressurize the other little hole on the valve side, and you should see air blowing through it, or feel it, or detect it. And it's one of the reasons why the overdrive clutch likes to fail on these transmissions. The other is just simply use, wear and tear, under leverage for overdrive in relation to the other, the other gears or clutches in the unit. All right, they're all the same. That's not going to come off. We'll take out all of the other bolts. And sorry if I'm being sloppy, it's just, hands are extremely slippery. So I go from the outside in, and then when I torque these up, I go inside out in a spiral pattern. Okay, I have a full rebuild series on these transmissions on the channel, so if you want, you can check that out step by step, including the pump assembly. Now, in that video, that's just part one, I reassembled the original pump that came out of that unit, even though we ended up replacing it with a brand new one from Chrysler. So you get to see the full procedures for reassembly of these things. So this is the body side, that's where your gears are, and then you have the stator support side on the other side of the wear plate, which you'll see once we get this thing apart. Get the million bolts out of it. All right, I'm gonna keep these in a separate little bin, just to make it easier organization-wise. There we go. All right, so this is your main pressure regulator valve, and you have your torque converter apply and accumulator valve and TC limit valve. And then here is the body. So you have your drive gear and your two driven gears. And here it is. I was going to say, there's no pump shuttle valve in here, but no, there is one. And it goes in just like that in this location. You don't lose your little shuttle valve. So, look at this here, and you can see all the wear on that drive gear. out of here. Yeah, look at that. Very wore out. I mean, you could feel the scoring. This thing massively overheated. I gotta ask him if there was any leaks. In fact, you know what? Now I just remembered a quarter line popped off, I think, and that's what kind of led to this thing failing. So yes, there were leaks. It was a massive one. So he's gonna need a pump. Okay. If you notice here, the recesses for your driven gears, they face up toward you, and the other side that's flat with no recess faces the body. So you would check in here. I mean, sometimes they look like this, sometimes they look even worse. Sometimes you'll see marked wear here on the shafts for the gears and the driven gears. So you also want to check a straight edge across and see if the pump is warped or not. But this thing is going to need replacement. We'll vacuum test them as well. You know, I don't think I have a video that shows that. Get this out of the way. Kind of unfortunate, just given how expensive they are. All right, let me get this case back toward the corner of the bench, and then we can start pulling everything else out and tearing it down as we go. All right, so here's your input assembly. Somewhat heavy, so just, you know, be careful. Nothing like a Ford 6R140 or anything like that, but yeah, it's got a little bit of weight to it. So what we have here is our number 5 bearing. This is a selective thrust washer that houses or encases the bearing. So I'll flash a chart on the screen that shows all the different sizes or thicknesses available, but this is what sets your front end play. And so you just take a flat blade screwdriver, come in here, and pop it out. There we go. Part way out. So Sonex makes a full bearing kit for these, and that's what I'm going to use. I mean, I already priced it into the transmission, so I don't really care if a bearing gets destroyed like this. I mean, that was kind of a hack job, amateur hour, admittedly, but you know, this is what they look like when they're apart. I'll just throw that over there. And then the washer itself is unharmed. The end plate felt about right to me, so I mean, if nothing else, it's a good sign. All right, so here is the back side. So this is going to be your reverse hub. This is going to be your high reverse clutch. And what we need to do is we need to tap this backing plate inboard so that we can remove the snap ring. And when you install this for the final time, once you have your clutch installed and you go ahead and have the backing plate in there, once you tap the backing plate all the way in so you can get the snap ring in, you have to pry the backing plate back out so that you you know, don't have a bind up. So let's see how I'm going to do this. Just go all the way around and tap it until it seats. You don't need to get crazy, you just need to back it off of the snap ring. Let's see if I get that snap ring out. Okay, now we need to pry it forward. So so we can get off of the lugs. And it wants to run away from us. Here's a backing plate, looks okay. And then here's our hub and our clutch. We have a bearing. Okay, here's your overdrive clutch hub. See if I can stay put for a second. Alright, so there's 4 bearings in this whole complex, and they all look like this. They're all the same bearing. So just note the orientation. So you have 2 frictions and a steel. Steel appears to be in good shape. Perhaps a steel module, clutch module, all that dealer deluxe kit was put in here when this thing was gone through previously. Alright, and then you have another bearing here for your forward clutch hub or underdrive clutch hub. And it sits in there just like that. Alright, now you're going to have a series of snap rings. You have a snap ring here for your overdrive backing plate. The opening, looks like it's going to be right there. It does not want to cooperate, at least not with that pick. Or a screwdriver, I should say. There we go. Alright, now you're going to have your overdrive backing plate. Just use the hub to kind of force it out. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe not all the way. Still hung up on 2 teeth. Alright, here we go. Sorry about that. So this is the side that faces the clutch. And then here's your top side. So inboard and outboard. So there is no numbers on the inboard or clutch facing side on the tabs. There is on the outboard side. Alright, so here's our overdrive clutch. We have another bearing. So the overdrive and underdrive clutch look similar. The interior exterior frictions look similar. However, what you want to do is measure thicknesses. So if you want to truly tell them apart so that you don't put the wrong clutches in the wrong location, you want to measure each disc. So these look in decent shape. They're not burnt. These are 52 thousandths. This is measuring at 50. And then the underdrive is 57 thousandths. So let's take a look at the whole pack. So you have a disc with interior teeth, and then you have a disc with exterior teeth. So interior, exterior. So we have, let's see, 4, 8, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, okay, 11. Let's count it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So Transgo makes a hot forged backing plate for the overdrive clutch for these transmissions, and If you're not going to install a whole overdrive housing assembly from, say, Sonics, it's a good idea to install that Transgo hot forged plate, because that'll allow you to squeeze an extra friction in there. Alright, so here's that bearing. I also want to check the bushings. You can reuse bushings in these transmissions. I generally don't, but you can if in fact they're in good shape. Okay, now we have the rest of the assembly. So you're going to have... Okay, looks like we're missing... I knew I was not counting. I was like, this should be more than 11. It's 12 and 12 factory, so 14 and 14 with the Transgo. Of course, I am missing my bottom friction. Alright, so we have one more snap ring that has to come loose on the exterior here, and then we have 2 snap rings that have to come out for the underdrive. So here's one more bearing. Snap ring ends. Sorry if this was not in view temporarily. There we go. Just take this one out. Good. There we go. Alright, now we got to take out the other snap ring, which is right there. And this one can be a real pain. Alright, so I'm going to use my pick and then screwdriver combination. There we go. This will allow me, to get the backing plate out and the top friction, which is the kind that has interior teeth. So we always start with an interior tooth disc or plate, and then you alternate. Alright, so there's one more snap ring. You see it there. Right there. Alright, that holds in the rest of the clutch. And I had to spin it around twice to spot the opening, or the end rather. Ah, clumsy as fuck. Clumsy as fuck. Alright, so here is our clutch snap ring. And then we had the backing plate snap ring, and then we had the larger snap ring that went around the perimeter here. And I do apologize for the sloppiness in which taking this drum complex apart. Alright, so let's take a look at the underdrive clutch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So these are going to be a little thicker than the overdrives. These looks like they're actually 62 thousandths. I think I said 57, 62. So there's our backing plate for that, backing plate for the overdrive. And then now we have a snap ring for the balance piston, which you may be able to remove on the bench. I'll try it. If not, I'll take it to the press and remove it there. It is under pretty heavy spring tension, so we'll see if we can pull it off. There we go. Gives me an opportunity to retrieve my pick as well. Alright, underdrive piston, return spring assembly, and this is going to be your apply piston. So you have apply piston, a return spring assembly, and a balance piston. And they're just like that. So new bonded pistons come in the dealership deluxe kit. Don't reuse bonded pistons, it's definitely not recommended. Alright, now we have another snap ring deep inside for our reverse slash overdrive. Come on. There we go. So same with this one here. As you can see, it's beveled. So this was the side that faced out, so that's how we'll go back with it. Alright, so there's a snap ring here that holds the input shaft into the overdrive hub. And it's this snap ring that's going to give you that play that I was talking about earlier. So just take a pick and try to do the best you can to get it engaged on the little wire style snap ring. There we go. You can see some rust here on the shaft. Should be able to clean this up with sandpaper, but if I cannot, he's going to need an input shaft. I mean, I may replace the shaft anyway. I mean, it's got rust here, it's got rust there. So check these sealing rings. Just make sure that they can move and rotate freely inside the groove. They're scarf cut so that you don't need any special tools. New ones will come in the kit and you'll replace them when the time comes. Alright, this should just pop out. So you're going to have a green O-ring and a red O-ring. This is the arrangement that they need to go back just like that. Green bottom, red top. And then you're going to have a lip seal in here. And the lip faces inboard or down into this cavity. Okay, bushings are wore out. Check in here for ring cut for the stator. That's where the stator sealing rings go. It's basically your 3 apply circuits for this drum. Alright, now here you have your piston and your housing. And there is another snap ring holding your Belleville plate in. So I have, in my earlier video, I show you a segment where I talk about this little orifice here getting clogged up. When that happens, you'll have clutch drag on those overdrive lined plates, and it'll eventually result in complete overdrive clutch failure. Alright, let's see if I can get this snap ring out. There we go. So the beveled side faces down. Alright, let's see if we can get this thing apart. We're not going to reuse this assembly at all. This one was being a little bit more stubborn than they usually are. Check these engagement splines, check the sealing surfaces. You want to make sure that there's no issues there. Check your lugs as well in the interior. I mean, you're basically doing a full, comprehensive visual and physical inspection on this drum. Okay, you're going to have an O-ring in here, and then you have another lip seal here. Okay, both of these, let's get this one out, and leave that out, and then this is a lip seal here, and the lip seal faces inboard, down. Alright, so now we'll go ahead and disassemble the rest of the case. So we have a snap ring here. Looks like it's protruding a little bit into the cavity where we don't like to see it. Not ideal. When I go back with it, I make sure that it's not protruding into that space. This screwdriver is a hair too wide. Alright, this is a beveled snap ring, so you want the bevel facing front and the flat side facing to the rear. Kind of a beefy snap ring, but it's not on the same level as the GM and Ford counterparts for those transmission center sports. Sorry if I was in the way there. Alright, now what I do is take large snap ring pliers and just grab up on the reaction sun gear / fourth clutch hub and pull center support and sun gear out, and sun gear / hub. Alright, so 2C and 4C clutch. 2C clutch is still in there. This is our fourth clutch. So you notice you have bearings, and then there's another bearing that goes onto our reverse planet, or our reaction carrier, or reaction planet. I think it goes like this. So this is the sun gear, as well as the hub, and then you have a bearing here that goes like this, and then right here, which I can already see, this is broken, which isn't good, is our selective washer for our rear end play. So we'll measure to see how thick it is, just so we're aware. Looks like it's going to be 94 thousandths thick. I'll flash a chart showing all the different thicknesses available. Unfortunately, that thing's seen better days. So we have a bearing, and we notice we have a locating tang or a set of tangs, tabs, if you will, on this bearing. So this is the apply piston and return plate for the 2C clutch, which is still in the case, and then this is the 4C clutch, or fourth clutch. And this retainer oftentimes will pop out, so it's good practice to go back with it with a retainer set with billet, a spring assembly, I should say, with billet retainers. Randy's Transmission sells them. They're, I want to say, 20 bucks or so, 25 bucks, something like that. Let's take a look at this clutch pad. So you need to buy the steel module for these two clutches separately, because they're traditional clutches like you do for the reverse. So 3 and 3. They look in okay shape. Alright, so let me see if I can just get this apart on the foot press. Give me a second. Alright, there we go. So like I say, we're not going to put this back in, this return spring assembly. It'll receive, a billet counterpart. So here's our piston, fourth clutch. This inner portion feels a bit hardened to me. It's not quite as supple as it should be. Let's take a look at them frictions again. Physically, they actually look okay. So it looks like we had this one pop out. Yep. So that would have resulted in the loss of second. I gotta check with him to see exactly, you know, in terms of the progression of symptoms after the cooler incident, you know, what exactly happened, what, you know, what was first, what he experienced initially, and then like how did it progress from there. So check your sealing surfaces and your center support everywhere. Make sure there's no issues. Check structure back here. Make sure it's not, you know, getting banged up or banged around. I don't do any of my for real inspections until after everything's cleaned off. So I would advise you to do the same. Clean everything off thoroughly first, and then do a proper inspection. Because otherwise, you're going to find yourself in a position where you know, you might miss something, think it's good, put it back in like that. In fact, it's not serviceable. You know, a part, or, you know, scoring on a sealing surface or something like that, and you're, you know, risk of having it come back on you. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and take out the snap ring for the second clutch. So very easy to get to. Just come up in here. It's not all that thick. It just comes right out, and then you can grab up on your reaction carrier. So we'll grab the second clutch in a second. Let's just check this real quick. You're checking for side play and vertical play. All right, and then your bearing goes right in here like this. So sorry about that. Like that. And that's how you have it. So teeth on both your pinion shafts as well as your sun gear, lugs on your second clutch hub as well as your fourth clutch hub. Make sure nothing is awry with any of those parts, or, you know, any of those portions of your planetaries and your sun gear. Alright, I'm going to get this second clutch out. It should be burnt based on what we saw. So a lot of heat sustained. So that steel plate is smoked. The frictions are smoked. So this is the source of all of the clutch debris and the burnt smell. And we know why it happened. The snap ring popped out. So you might have to look at getting a center support if that center support snap ring groove is no good. And they do offer billet center supports as well. You know, they're available for anything real high performance, or if you just want a more robust and beefier support. So always a good idea. All right, now I'm going to get back to the side. My tools. We're going to take out the entirety of the rest of the rear gear train, along with that low reverse housing. And so this is, again, kind of heavy, so be careful. Okay. All right. So here is basically everything in terms of your rear gear set. So you're going to have planetary carriers, both visible as well as not visible, along with a rear case thrust bearing. So there's a snap ring that holds everything in place, and that snap ring is right here. So let's run the ends of it. We can get it out of here and take a look at these gear sets. Okay, just be careful because your basket is going to want to fall. That's your ring gear for your output carrier. So this is going to be your reverse carrier, the one that's in my hand now. Reverse carrier. So you have a bearing. And that is for the sun gear. That's part of the reaction carrier assembly. Now here is your sun gear for your output carrier. Okay, so check splines. Your bearing, check your teeth, check the journal, make sure none of these are clogged up. This is going to be your lube passageways. And then for your output carrier, again, you're going to perform the same checks as you do with any other planetary. You know, wiggle from side to side and then go vertical with them. As far as cleaning these planets, you really don't have to do too much. Just wipe them down and then soak them in ATF +4, a big bucket if you have it. All right, I'm going to see if I can clean off the surface rust on these splines, get it off of there. But the splines themselves, check those. Check these splines as well. Make sure everything's in good shape, that there's nothing obviously wrong with the assembly. I mean, that's the name of the game. It's really all you're doing. This appears to be good. Okay, here is our reverse carrier. All right, everything appears to be okay with this thing. And then check your teeth on your basket. So this could be washed in the hot tank if you wanted to. If you wanted to do that. Alright, so we got one more snap ring in the case we have to take out so that we can go ahead and remove our low reverse drum and clutch pack and look at that. So there's going to be your drum, your pack, and your rear sprag assembly. And all that's left in the case is the parking light. So let me move the camera a little bit so you can see what's going on. Alright, so here's our snap ring. Let's get that out of the way. This is for our clutch. And I will have flashed all of the clutch clearances for all of these clutch packs on the screen at some point. And as I'm thinking about it, I'll probably just flash either the same chart each time we look at a clutch, or at the end of the video so that you can see it there. Alright, so this is our clutch snap ring. This is selective. I'll flash a chart with all of the different thicknesses if I can find it. This is the case snap ring. So notice you'll have two pointy ends. That's for the drum itself in the case. And then for your clutch snap ring, you have one end that's squared off. So that's how you can tell them apart. The other thing you can do is just simply install the the drum snap ring back into the drum and put it through the cleaning cycle in the hot tank like that. Okay, so we have our sprag assembly. We'll look at that in a second. Let's take a look at this clutch pack. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. So again, we start with a plate with interior teeth and, go progressively toward the back, and we conclude with a plate that has exterior teeth. So 14 of these. Assess condition. They look okay. I mean, you could tell that all these clutch packs got hot. I mean, real hot as a result of that cooler line coming off. All right, so here's your sprag. So I'm going to check rotation. So if you're holding the inner element just like this, the outer element is going to freewheel clockwise and lock counterclockwise. So we're going to replace the sprag as part of standard operating procedure. Something I always recommend you do. The new sprag kit will come with the element itself as well as the retention hardware. So for your inner race, you just want to check in here and make sure that there's no obvious signs of scoring or overheating or damage of any kind, nature, or sort. And this appears to be perfectly fine. And then if you want, you can reintroduce cross-hatching with 320 grit sandpaper. And then you'll have a top cover plate, a retainer plate, the sprag element itself, and you'll have a bottom retainer plate. So here's the top, here's the bottom, and then your cover plate. Sorry, I didn't realize that this was not quite in the shot. So top retainer plate, or cover plate rather, top retainer plate, sprag element, bottom retainer, bottom cover. And then for your inner race, just check that. Make sure it's in good shape. So it needs to be mirrory smooth. All right. So the Belleville style plate uses clamshell retainers. Let me see if I can get this thing out using the foot press. All I would need to do is compress the teeth enough to take loose the retainers. That has to be done on the press, on the regular press. All right, so just like this, probably a little bit better angle here. We can see a little bit better on the bench versus over at the press. And then this tool that I'm using to compress all that, let me see if I can find the tool number on here. It's not for this transmission, it's for something else. I have no idea what. I just bought it off eBay because I thought I could use it. Here we go, it's a OTC tool. The tool number is going to be MD998921-01. I don't know if you can see that. It's OTC, M as in Mary, D as in dog, 998921-01. Let's try and get this piston out of here. A new one will come in your kit. All right. Just put the snap ring back in the drum. And we'll get it all cleaned up. We have 2 bushings. Note that the inboard bushing is a lubrication bushing and the outboard bushing is a sealing bushing. So you want to check your journal where this rides upon to make sure there's no problems. Okay, and here's another view of the clamshell style retainers. This is a kind of a transfer of technology from the ZF units. They all use that. The actual German units that go into the BMWs and Audis and I think some Volkswagens and other like kind vehicles over there in Europe. The Benzes all take 722 series transmissions, so they're a little different in that regard. All right, let me move the camera back and then we'll summarize our findings, to the extent we can, knowing we have not vacuum tested the valve body yet. Okay, we're going to wrap up the video by simply revisiting in a little bit more detail some of the parts that we observed to be no good, or at least potentially no good, and touch on what we saw and maybe try and talk through why we saw what we saw. So, first things first, let's discuss the broken up selective rear washer. This is the one that goes into the fourth clutch hub slash reaction carrier sun gear assembly. And while this is not super rare, it occurs enough that the aftermarket has come up with solutions in the form of steel versions of those selective washers. It really shouldn't happen at all if the case is properly set up. So I believe that when this thing was rebuilt in the past, sometime in 2020, whoever rebuilt it didn't set this case up correctly. I believe they either had too much or too little end play in the front and rear respectively. So when you have a breakup like this, it's usually because parts are reacting and are interacting violently in a way that's not normal. It's not, expected in a transmission that's assembled properly and used during the, per factory and design intent or engineering intent. So when I was pulling and pushing on both the input shaft and the output shaft, I detected almost no movement in the output shaft and absolutely no movement other than the little bit of play that exists between the snap ring, the groove, the input shaft, and the rest of the assembly. And we saw that when we got to the overdrive or input assembly to the point we're ready to take that little wire style snap ring out. We showed you the play that existed there between the input shaft and the rest of the assembly, and that was the entirety of what I felt when I was pushing and pulling on the shaft with the case fully assembled. So I believe that in brief, this was caused by an improperly assembled case. So you want to be between 20 and 29 thousandths for your front end play and 10 to 20 thousandths for the rear. And you adjust the rear end play by swapping out different thicknesses of this particular washer until you get within that spec. And you measure it with the case inverted. ATSG manual shows you how to do that, and I'll flash a picture on the screen for illustrative purposes. So that leads us to the center support and what we observe with the 2C clutch and the snap ring for the pistons return plate being out of its groove. So I looked at this very carefully once everything was cleaned off. Like I say, don't really do any meaningful inspections when parts are still dirty. You want them clean so that you can see everything that you need to see and spot things that you might otherwise miss or concealed underneath of dirty fluid or whatever. So looking at this snap ring, groove here, to me it looks like any other snap ring groove. I run my hand all along it. I don't feel anything unusual. There's no chunks missing out of any part of this circumference here. I mean, it looks perfectly fine. So the center support itself looks perfectly fine to reuse. So what could have happened to cause this thing to basically come loose, to have the snap ring pop out and free up the return plate? I think it's a case of Occam's razor, and I really should have said that during the teardown phase, but I think it's just simply a case of whoever rebuilt this not having the snap ring fully engaged all the way around. And as a result, after X amount of drive cycles, it simply popped out. So with that said, I'm going to replace this plate, or this return spring or disc, or whatever the hell you want to call it, just out of an abundance of caution, in the off chance that it's fatigued to the point where it's not able to maintain spring tension, and when this goes back in, it pops out again shortly thereafter. We don't want that. I did talk to the customer. Interestingly enough, he did not have any problems with second gear. So I told him, I said he was right on the edge of losing it. So between this thing popping out, that selective braking, and the catastrophic loss of fluid as a result of the cooler line popping off, a whole host of things kind of combined to doom this transmission. So I talked a little bit about the shaft itself. It had some kind of staining, for lack of a better term. You can see it here, a little bit of residual, as well as some rust on the shaft, at least the shaft splines. The splines themselves are in good shape. All I did was take a wire wheel with a drill and removed all the rust. A little bit of sandpaper here on the pilot journal as well as our main journal. And then I closely inspected the snap ring groove here to make sure that there's no unusual wear, that it's not excessively shallow as a result of wear on both sides of the splines. And it appears to be okay to me. And then you have your little orifice there. That's still in there. The dealer deluxe kits or main overhaul kits will have new orifice capsules. You could just put them in there. Very easy to get out with a small pair of snap ring pliers, and those are the original sealing rings. Okay, the cooler bypass valve, I mean, it's pretty dirty. I'm just going to replace it with another good used one. No sense in putting that one back in there. Maybe it's good, maybe it isn't. Maybe that could have also caused the accident with respect to the cooler line popping off. So when he goes back in with this, I'm going to have him measure cooler line pressure, so that if there's some sort of restriction in his system, I mean, he's already knows to flush everything out, get the coolers cleaned out, get the lines flushed. So he's on top of that. But I will have him do a pressure test there, just to make sure the pressures are not excessive. All right, we'll just revisit the pump real quick, because that's really the only other significant part that has to be replaced. So look at all the warpage on the wear plate, and you see all the scoring here. I mean, this thing is toast. And then here's the body itself. All heavily scored up, heavily burnt. And our drive gear. So you want to check for wear too on these engagement teeth for your converter. So a lot of times you'll see these really excessively worn, and it'll have a sloppy fit or a sloppy engagement on the converter's hub. This gear actually looks a little warped to me now I'm actually looking at it here in front of the camera. Heavily scored here, obviously no good. We're actually going to go back with this thing with a new pump assembly featuring a RevMax billet pump body. So that'll be cool. I'll do a build strategy video so that folks can see exactly how we're going to build this up. It's going to be significantly beefier than the build that's featured on the channel now. And then I got one coming in immediately after that that's going to go even further in terms of beefiness, in terms of the spend and the parts that we're going to be putting into that thing. It's going to be pretty wild. So I may film that whole build, I'm not sure. Alright, last thing I'll touch on are the bearings. So we're going to put a Sonics bearing kit in here. It's pretty par for the course, at least for my builds. And a Durabond bushing kit. I like to, kind of finish these builds off with the high performance Teflon coated bushings and all new bearings, just because the bearings in these things, while some of them I don't see bad too often, others, you know, every once in a while I'll see bad, so I just put all new. All right, that should do it. If you have any questions, comments, go ahead and leave them below. Appreciate you watching, especially if you made it this far into the video, and hopefully this last section kind of wrapped things up for you, and you know, you understand kind of what happened, or at least why I think what happened occurred. And you know, you can be on the lookout for this kind of stuff. One other thing I'll mention, and this is something that another builder that I frequently interact with on Facebook, Jay, he had made me aware of special retainers that you can purchase from PTP that will protect against snap ring blowout on the underdrive balance piston, as well as the other snap ring. Suncoast also makes them, so I'm not going to purchase them for this build. I'm going to put a new set of snap rings in that drum, but I'm going to probably purchase the Suncoast kit or a kit from PTP for the build that's going to come after this one, the one that's going to be completely off the wall bonkers when it comes to performance. So anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. Greatly appreciate it, and hope to see you again on the next video.